Well, better late than never, potentially. It's Shoot the Gap. I'm your host, Nate Markham. With me is Hollywood Titan. It's just you and I, my friend. The way it should be. Finally dumped that extra weight that was just dragging us down before, and Jorge Edwards and Mike Wohlert. Now we can just, if you're listening, now you're going to get the real information. So for 13 weeks prior, if you didn't make the playoffs or you had a bad season, you got bad information, that sound right there is the sound, sweet, sweet sound of success that's about to happen. I'll cheers you, buddy.
I'm with you. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. How you been, man?
I've been doing pretty good. How have you been?
I can't complain,
we were talking off air a minute ago, got in a little trouble at the old wifey's function.
Yeah,
but,
what's trouble? Trouble's just
as always. I was the life of the party, so hey, it's a win-win.
Absolutely, and I can promise you right now, you can drink as much as you want, and I will not yell at you. I won't scold you. I won't send you to your room without dinner. I might roll my eyes occasionally, but but that's okay. So, it's the last week of the quote unquote regular season for most. It went fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Never fails.
Seems like we just started a few weeks ago, and now here we are.
I know. We were literally doing our which, by the way, a little spoiler. I think in next week or the week after, we're going to do a little year-end review and look back at our top 10 at each position and just see how, accurate we were. I know I missed a few. I know you missed a few, just a lot to do with injury and just underperforming for certain players. But, it's always good to look back. Having accountability is probably a key that many of us lack, but many of us should strive to have, more of. And so going forward, we'll continue to put out the best information possible. And let's jump right into week 14, man. Let's take a look what we got. I mean, at the end in the news and notes, there's, injuries galore. We know that's bound to happen. And let's start with your team first, brother. Unfortunately, the Tennessee Titans, yowzers. I'm talking about a laundry list of injuries. I mean, Danico Autry ruled out today. David Long ruled out today. Jeffrey Simmons, where would you put him? On the positive or the negative side of questionable?
I would put him on the positive side, but not by very much. I mean, I think tomorrow we'll know a little bit better of how he's doing. But Autry is looking like a no-go for sure. Long looks like a no-go. So we're already kind of thin at some positions. So losing those two definitely hurts. So we could definitely use Simmons. If he can play at all, he would be a help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and Jacksonville interior, that's the one area where he could be disruptive, put T-Law off his game and hopefully slow down some of that running game. But we know that Rashad Weaver and we know that Bud Dupree going to pretty much fill the majority of the snaps out wide. At linebacker, though, Dylan Cole was a linebacker too. He's most likely going to see the majority of the shares. Who's the next man up? Is that Monty Rice or Schobert?
It's going to be both. They're kind of going to split. I can see variable going with whoever's had the best week, whoever's doing the best in the game. It's definitely going to be Dylan Cole out there, but behind him, and it's going to be a split, and that's kind of what it was last week too. Those two kind of just split. So whoever's got the hot hand, I would expect to be out there.
Yeah. Do you think is Cole a play for you? And
I think so,
I mean, I have to agree. I think that the snaps and, Jacksonville as a whole, probably I'd say middle of the pack against the linebackers. So
yeah, we'll talk a little bit about him a little bit more here in a little bit, but yeah, he's definitely a play. And I've picked him up a few weeks ago, just based on the fact that he's a Mike Vrabel guy. And Vrabel is one of those guys more than any. I mean, you hear that a lot, but it's kind of like Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. If you're in that club, you're going to get the run, you're going to get the reps, no matter what your role is. So
yeah.
And the good thing with Cole is he's a key special teams player, so he's going to sneak you in a few tackles there too. So
very sneaky.
Yeah, I definitely think Cole is a good play, especially with
like
all the injuries and everything going on. Yeah.
I mean, you got to assume on the field. Special teams, little piece there, very interesting. I got to tell you, 14 weeks in, I haven't had too many opportunities where I've heard a person as a starter who will see 100% of snaps still playing on special teams and could contribute. Like you said, what he chips in 2 extra solo tackles on special teams, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's the difference sometimes between the LB 20 and the LB 12 is that small
he's
amount
playing
of margin.
25-30% of the special team reps, so he's getting a good number. Yeah,
that's great. That's good to know.
Yeah,
let's go to Detroit. Derek Barnes, another questionable, not looking positive. His snaps haven't exactly been. It's not like we're talking about a starter that's missing out in the next man up. But what it does do is probably allows for Rodrigo Blankenship to, or not Rodrigo Blankenship. Oh my God, Malcolm Rodriguez. Wow, I'm already moving to Reed Blankenship. Malcolm Rodriguez too.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's been one of
6 minutes in.
7 minutes in, and the Reed Blankenship for Malcolm Rodriguez conundrum.
Wow.
It afflicts all of us. I've been at work all day. I haven't had enough drink yet. But do you think that this actually gives Rodrigo enough snaps to be relevant this week?
I think so. I mean, we're kind of in this limbo purgatory with Barnes and Rodriguez, right?
Mm-hmm.
One plays good 1 week or a couple weeks, and then the other one has a big games, and one's starting, one's not starting. So you kind of had this mixed match. So yeah, I think if Barnes is out, then yeah, I definitely think more stops for Rodrigo. So
yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, it's not like we're talking about a world record here, but we do like the matchup. Everything seemed to make sense, and there's 6 teams on a bye. You're struggling. Yeah. Trust me. Every person listening is struggling at some point on defense. They're trying to find that linebacker that's going to give them 80% of the snaps or more and just rest on your laurels. So, I mean, Minnesota, like I said, good matchup against linebackers, especially if they try to run a little bit more. But the probably most concerning one, if there's one as far as IDP relevancy, is in San Francisco. Nick Bosa, I don't believe misses time. I believe he plays. I believe he's one of the pure, if anybody can come out, miss practice and play at 120%, whatever, it's Nick Bosa. Shanahan even said it's hamstring management. Are you worried at all about Bosa?
No, not really. I'm like you. I don't think he misses any time. Now, he may get scaled back a few reps here and there,
Sure.
Just a little bit, especially if they've got some other players along that front four that's doing well. They may say, hey, let's get him a couple extra reps of rest here and there. But, yeah, I don't think he misses any time. I kind of like it, though, for Drake Jackson uptick, though. Maybe he gets those reps, the rookie from USC, so who I was already high on anyway. So, but, yeah, as for Nick Bosa, I'm not worried right now.
Yeah, and that's their rotation. You hit the nail on the head. They have as good a rotation across that defensive line of anybody. I mean, when you can throw out after Bosa, right. Ebukam has been really good. You get Eric Armstead back. You have Omenahu, who's been
which
good.
Is a huge boost to that defense.
Very much so. Having those, and Drake Jackson last week, 9 snaps, but take away Bosa, say he's relieved of 10% of his snaps. And that's an extra 5 to 6 or whatever, 4 to 5 or whatever the case may be. You give Drake Jackson 15 or 15 snaps, maybe 12 to 15 pass rush attempts, and you could see the explosion. And Tampa's tough.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, outside of Tristan Wirfs, who I don't think is playing from last I saw.
I don't think he is either from what I saw.
Yeah. So that offensive line takes a hit a little bit. That as much as I say Bosa is the biggest hit, the biggest hit probably is the person who's actually out, most likely, is Derwin James. Danielle Hunter, I know, was next. Danielle Hunter's back at practice from an illness. I'm not going to be too concerned. Illness is afflicting everybody, so we'll pass that. But Derwin James, doubtful. Hamstring. We've done this all year, Hollywood. We can go back and just insert, 10-minute mark, and you're going to hear Nate or one of the four of us say Derwin James's name. And usually what follows is, I'm not really worried. He's always on the, injury list. He'll play. But I don't think he plays this week, him or Sebastian Joseph Day, right?
It's not looking good.
No, I don't think he does.
So forget who it was. Now you better make plans now for him to be out. I think that's the correct move. So, yeah, I mean, he may wind up playing because we still got another day, right? So he may wind up playing, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
Usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And this is the real time when I've seen them saying,
kudos to you, because that's my favorite saying. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
It's a lot of smoke coming out of the beat writers.
It applies to anything.
Typically, we see Derwin James, and it's the same thing like I said. It's usually they go, Derwin James on the list, we know. Rinse, repeat, move on. Yep. But now it's like, we're really concerned, yada, yada, yada. I think, if anything, Miami's run game, I know the guys over at on the Fourth and Frames podcast, had a talk about some running back upside plays and fades. Both Miami running backs are my plays if I have an offensive one for sure, mostly as a result of both of those two studs being out. Questionable tag in Buffalo to Matt Milano. I think he plays. He got limited practice in today. Jeff Okudah returned back to practice from an illness. Here's a guy that did not practice today, and he hasn't played in a couple of weeks, is Derek Stingley. Another unfortunate situation for Houston, but IDP relevancy, not that much. The next name is huge, though, because of the last 2 weeks he's had. Chad Muma. What a, shitty situation for his managers, because his last 2 weeks have been as good as anything you could ever ask for, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's been on it the last 2 weeks. Devin Lloyd has been the big name rookie down there, and rightfully so. He started out the season like gangbusters and kind of slid down a little bit, still playing good. But Muma, the key thing here is, I know this year with both of them being rookies and kind of first it's Lloyd, then it's Muma, now we're back to Lloyd. We may see that we will see that the rest of this year, and I think we will even see that maybe a little bit next year.
Yeah.
But I think halfway into next year, or maybe a little sooner from that point forward, Muma and Lloyd, that's the two dudes down there in Suxonville.
It is. And the hard thing is that if you look just on paper, Lewican hasn't skipped a beat. Tackle-wise is all around the ball. But, grade-wise, he doesn't grade out as the best linebacker. And sometimes we have to take, recognition of that.
But I think that's okay. If they can afford to keep him with those two rookies, they're going to be nasty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They're going to be nasty.
That's it. I like that team. I know you say Suxonville because of the whole, division and everything else, and I respect that, and I would say the same. But that team's going to be dangerous for the next couple of years as they start getting. Imagine this offense with Calvin Ridley. Imagine this defense with another year under their belt. Trayvon Walker improved, etc. We'll talk a little bit about some of the other pieces across Jacksonville. Another big hit to the Giants is Leonard Williams being out. That divisional game, Leonard Williams, with Dexter Lawrence, provided one of the better 1-2 punches. The Giants did get healthier over the last week now. So, and we can talk about that just a little bit, but Leonard Williams, especially in a deep, a league with 6 buys, he was a starter, and you're going to have to find other options. If you're in a safety, conundrum, Mike Edwards and Antoine Winfield Jr. both did not practice today, and both are trending out. That happened, we saw this last week already. We know some opportunities for other players exist. We can get to that in a little bit. And then last but not least, Sion Takitaki went on the IR, and we'll, jump right into what that could potentially mean, or who that could mean more snaps for situation as we get into, money or mirage. And the one thing we want to know is some of the best kept secrets or best waiver wire ads. Will they be money plays for week 14 and potentially beyond? Or are they mirages based off of a couple good weeks or a couple, opportunities that maybe we think are more advantageous? And we'll start there with the Cleveland Browns linebacking core. We know JOK is going to get his snaps, but who's the next person up? Takitaki had proven that he deserved those snaps. Really been playing well as of late. Last week it was Tony Fields, the second that came in, got the interception, pick six, got the majority of the snaps. But looks like Deion Jones is who coaching staff says should get the majority of the playing time potentially. Is Deion Jones is he actually money this week, or is it simply a mirage?
This is kind of tricky. And I guess for me, and I guess this is a fence, sitting on the fence type answer, but it depends on what you're needing Deion Jones to be for you. If you're needing him to be an LB1, LB2, that's a mirage. Yeah. If you're needing him to be LB3, LB4, or whatever in deep leagues, then I think he can be money. But LB1, LB2, no way. I'm passing. And that whole situation in Cleveland is a mess right now. So,
oh, absolutely. And then yesterday it was, Joe Woods came out and said that Deion Jones and Jordan Kanasic are going to be primary Mike linebackers. Didn't say or Jordan. It was Deion Jones and Jordan, which for me just means I don't trust the playing time. With what Tony Fields did last week, that's even more scary, is that it's just going to be a rotation piece. It's going to be JOK and nothing else as far as I'm concerned. Thumbs
which
up
I'm
in agreement.
I like the Tony Fields. I mean, you don't go chasing rainbows and unicorns with him right now, but I think he's somebody you need to have. I think you need to have him on your taxi squad, at least.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a taxi squad, if you've got somewhere on your bench you can stash him, then do it. Mm-hmm. I think he could be a good player. He was a good player for Arizona, so
yeah,
I like him. I mean, he's I talk about it on IDP Nation a lot. Patience with rookies, right? And I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I draft these guys, and I'm making my evaluations. I'm like, I like this guy, and I'm guilty. When the season, I'll draft them or whatever, and I'll get in the season. I'm like, they're not helping me, and I'm get that itchy trigger finger, and I cut them, right? And then here they come. So,
well, I think the one thing we saw is that at youth, he was great. He missed a couple tackles last week, but he was
right.
They trusted him in that, that split second situation where they need him to come in and play well. It is either way. Deion Jones, mirage. We talked earlier. Chad Muma out. Next person up, Devin Lloyd. Is Devin Lloyd, while having significant playing time prior to the Chad Muma takeover, was not, I don't want to say look lost, but was very uninvolved and did not have a ton of IDP relevancy for those few weeks. But given Muma's absence, given Muma was playing 100% of the snaps, maybe Devin Lloyd can step right in. What are you thinking against your Tennessee Titans this week? Is he going to be money against them, or is he simply a mirage?
I think he's money. I mean, early in the season, he was playing a lot of snaps, right? Probably roughly, he was playing 100% basically every game. And then the last 4 weeks, he started, or last 3 weeks, he was 60, 38, and 29. So he lost, but his special teams rep went up, which correlates with Muma taking over a little bit. I think with Muma out, he steps right back into that 100% role. And against Tennessee, it pains me to say this, but I'm taking anybody against Tennessee right now. That offensive line is trash. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of issues. And, of course, we fired John Robinson, so this will be the first game after that. Who knows what the reaction to that is. for Devin Lloyd, I like Devin Lloyd. I said early in the year he was my defensive rookie of the year, and come out the gate looking that way, kind of slacked off a little bit, but I still like him. And maybe it's just a case with him changing a position, with movement and a lot of maybe that's going to take some adjusting, maybe. But I like Devin Lloyd. I think he'll be money this week.
Well, and like you said, I mean, here's how we started off. 11 tackles, 6 tackles, 7, 14, 11, 7, 7. So we know that upside is there. And that was against teams that now that we see from a linebacker perspective, Washington, Indy, the Chargers, the Eagles, Texans, Indy again. Those are teams that are giving up a ton of points to the linebacker. And it just so happened the Giants, Denver, Vegas, and KC, not the most generous to opposing linebackers. Tennessee isn't really either, shockingly enough, but I think that has a little bit to do with the fact that the actual D line's just getting, 0.8 yards, I think, at first contact is what Tennessee is allowing, which is one of the lowest in the NFL. But I think that they're going to lean on Henry as much as possible.
Little side nugget, Lloyd was leading the league in pass deflections, pass breakups, what are you going to call it, through the first 3 weeks. He had 0 week 1, then he had back-to-back games with 3. So he had 6 in the first 3 games, or 6 in 2 games, however you want to look at it. So I think he's a playmaker. And I like I said earlier, I like him and Muma together. And if they can keep Olakun there, they're going to be tough to deal with.
Yeah, I like Lloyd as an LB 2-3 this week. Probably on the bottom end. I just don't know how much Tennessee can move. I worry with the amount of injuries they have. I don't think anything's deep. I think everything's short to intermediate over the middle, which is tons of tackles for both Luakon and Devin Lloyd personally. I think that's what they're going to see.
And they got Derrick Henry, right? That's automatically
used to
going to lead you to a lot of tackle opportunities, right? It's no
opportunities. Absolutely. What an opportunity to put up IDP relevancy is actually returning from injury, and Azeez Ojulari did just that last week. And in first game back, 58% of the snaps and a 22% pressure rate. This week, though, the Giants get the Philadelphia Eagles. Is Azeez Ojulari against that offensive line money or mirage this week for you?
I hate to say this because I really like Ojulari. But I think for this week, for the purpose of this week, I think he's a little bit of a mirage because Philly's just on a roll right now. But I think if you can get past this week, I kind of like him. He's a money play after that. I liked him coming out of college. Fortunately, injuries kind of got in the way and slowed him down. But if you've got better options, I would probably pass on him this week and then look going forward after this week. I like him. So he's not somebody I'm cutting, right?
No, exactly. If anything, you're going out and you hit the nail on the head. If you can buy him early and knowing if people are put off by the Eagles and their offensive line, or if he comes out this week, turns that 22 pressure rate into a dud and doesn't have a single pressure, doesn't get any, stats, and someone drops him week 15, Washington Commanders, the absolute get right game for any defensive end in the league, because the Commanders offensive line is garbage. Sorry, Jorge. I know you're probably listening. No offense. None taken, Nate. Thank you so much, Jorge. Very nice of you. Moving on. New York Giants. Probably. He should be. We're probably his favorite podcast, I would assume. I
didn't know we had a boss man. I thought we just run this willy-nilly.
This isn't even anything. We don't actually record this, Hollywood. This is just my way of making sure that you actually hang out with me.
Well, see, that makes sense.
Yep. I lied to Carrie and told her, I was like, "What's up, girl? I got a podcast. You want to hang out?" And she fell for it. 7 years later, she still doesn't know that we don't actually record this, and this is just me talking into a computer. Funny little side note story. So we went to for Thanksgiving at Carrie's father's house. It's out in the country, and we sit around a bonfire, and there's about 20 of us all hanging out. We have a microphone, and you get to play, YouTube karaoke where everybody gets to go around and pick the song, and then you have to listen to it. No matter what the song is, who cares what it is? If you don't like it, shut your mouth. Ooh, no complaints. That's right. You want to play Pantera? Great. Play Pantera. You want to play Eazy-E? Play it. Doesn't matter. You're in. Exactly. Well, I was DJing, and I guess I excelled at that. I didn't know I would or not, but my father-in-law asked me if I just crushed it. It was funny. It was great. We had a great time. It felt like I was podcasting, except for, doing songs like a DJ. Casey Kasem kind of came to mind. But he asked me if I practiced DJing in the basement by myself. And I thought, no, what the hell would I do that for? I just talk to you idiots all day long and tolerate good and bad opinions of songs or good or bad opinions of players, leading us to another New York Giant, 2 New York Giants on this Money Mirage, not by intention, but Jason Pinnock was one this week where, the Eagles realistically are excellent to opposing safeties. They have allowed the most points, free safety snaps capable of a solid fantasy floor is the question I have. Probably should have said that more in a question format, but is Jason Pinnock money or mirage against this Eagles team?
It's crazy. We got 2 Giants back to back here, but
no, wasn't by design. It's my bad.
If he's as a safety, I think there's so many better options, right? There's better options on his team. Julian Love.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
He's just not somebody I'm chasing. I think that position's so deep. I mean, you'd really have to be hurting at the position with some injuries to want to start him. I mean, he's getting the volume, 100% and 93% of the tackles or the snaps the last 2 weeks, which is over 75 both weeks total. But he went from 8 tackles and 7 solos to 4 tackles and 2 solos. So I'm going to say Mirage because you just don't know what you're getting out of him. And I mean, for me, I'm looking for consistency, especially this late in the season, right? This is it. This is your last week. So if you're on that playoff fringe, there's no time to really screw around and play
Don't
with
get cute, right? Don't get cute.
Yeah,
but that was the reason why he made the list is because prior to that, what we had seen is he was being played near the box as well in some of those games against Houston and Detroit. He had 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, a couple quarterback hits, and then he follows it up with an 8 tackle game against Dallas, which is big against opposing safeties. In Philly, not being with pass rush and with this blitz. So that's one thing the Giants do. They blitz more than anybody else. And so if you take some linebackers,
I'll say this: if you're in a super deep league, and when I say super deep league, I'm not just talking about rosters. I'm talking about your starters, right? Because I play in some leagues where you start 4, 5, 6 defensive backs, and I play in some leagues where you play 4 or 5 safeties. So in those type of leagues, if you can play him like in a position specific league, if you can play him as a corner and he's playing safety with him playing up in the box like that, you got injuries. I'm not hating the opportunity, but overall, I think he's a mirage. But I could see the scenario where he'd be valuable.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. That's the one thing we're saying is don't get cute, but we like to cater to everybody in different dynamics. And sometimes people listening are playing those leagues with you, 4 or 5 safety deeps, and they are just scouring the waivers, and they have to find somebody. And sometimes, sometimes that's a good play. Sometimes the person they pick up, like Jason Pinnock, maybe going into week 15, doesn't do well. And they either have 2 choices. They can just take it and, say, all right, well, I screwed up. Or they can. Because the players gonna play. And the haters gonna hate, baby. I'm just gonna shake. Shake it off. Heartbreakers gonna break. And the fakers gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna shake. They can shake it off and not worry about how they've done previously and just look to the future going forward. gets us right into a team we've discussed a few different times.
You and Jorge have a lot of fun with that shit, don't you?
More than you know, and hence why I'm keeping straight face.
No, I'm pretty sure I know.
I'm a professional, and I do not let it get to me. But it is possibly, the hardest part about the whole thing is for me to have some segue that I have to be able to allude to the shake it off. And it takes me about a good minute prior, and I have to just pretty much quit listening or thinking what I'm doing. So if you ever talk to me before the shake it off segment, that last 30 seconds, just know I have no clue what you're talking about. I just was pretty much setting it up for how am I going to say they're either going to have to take it or shake it.
I blame Jorge for all this because he's already got me blocked on Twitter once over this.
Yeah, that was a death threat. I'm pretty certain. Not really death threat. We're joking. It was not. It was tone. Tone was a little off.
Well,
like tone.
Was it death threat or was it not?
It was not. No, the answer is no. It was not. It was definitely not. Say no.
Well, maybe not at the certain person.
Oh, sure. But I'm pretty certain that it's going to be, you're going to get kicked. You're going to get blocked by her, and we're going to get a cease and desist letter, I'm sure, to play your song.
I beg you, block me. Please.
No chance. Speaking of blocking, will the Tennessee Titans offensive line block Josh Allen? Because let's be honest, Josh Allen's been a very big disappointment. No sack since week 4. It's been just utter blah since then.
Until I was looking at the show sheet earlier, I did not even realize that it had been that long since he had a sack. I really didn't. And I've got him in a few places. But to answer your question, can Tennessee blocking? I highly doubt it, right?
Right.
We talked earlier about how trash their offensive line is. They've got about 31 sacks in 12 games, which is an average of 2.58 a game.
Yeesh.
I mean, it's basically a floodgate opening. With Lawan gone and all these young guys in there, and Tannehill, he doesn't do himself any favors at times.
No, true.
If there was a get right game for Allen, this is it. If you've been like, he screwed me every week and he hasn't had a sack since week 4. If you're going to play him, this is the week. I feel confident with that. Not saying he's going to get the sack, but the odds are definitely in your favor.
Yeah, like you said. Nicholas Petit-Free and Dennis Daly, not exactly studs in protecting against the pass. But that's the opportunity. You got to look at situation. And talk about another situation. And we talked about him a little bit last night on the Are You Down with IDP, the IDP podcast with Club Fantasy and Fantasy and Frames. And Marcus Davenport's name came up then. And Joe Zolo was just laughing almost at the fact that how much New Orleans gave up to move up to get Marcus Davenport. And I'm a Marcus Davenport fan. I have been. The injuries, the injuries, it's been not just nonstop. Boom, 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 boom. It's shoulder, it's finger, it's this, it's that. And he has a half a sack on the season. Here's the thing with that, though. He still has a 13% pressure rate and a 19% win rate. So the metrics are okay. Just not getting the actual sacks and the production and the snaps are, minimal, about 40%, 36 to 46% over the last 6 weeks. What do you think? Are you shaking off his terrible regular season, give him some more confidence or not?
It's really hard to, right? I mean, for all the things that you stated, half a sack and 13% pressure rate, 19% win rate, not very good numbers. The injuries, I don't know that they fully overpaid for him, whole body of work. But again, I think this kind of goes back to Josh Allen too. I think for this week, I think Davenport is money a little bit just for the fact that, hey, Atlanta benched their starter, Marcus Mariota, right? So they're going to start a rookie quarterback, Desmond Ridder. He's going to run out there making his first start. So how fast is the game going to be for him, right? So, because we all know there's only a few rare players at quarterback that can start as a rookie and things are kind of slow and they can process stuff. It's a big learning curve. Again, I think if you're going to start him, this is the week, right?
Well, next week is the week. That's where, because both teams are on by, but I know what you mean. Yeah, right. Next week. True. I shouldn't have started that. I know what you meant, though. I just want to make sure that other people knew what we were talking about, because this is an early forecasting for the playoffs. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see Desmond Ridder hold on to the ball just a little too long and just watch, because I'm hesitant to invest because I've been burnt. I don't want to put my hand on the stove.
Better options, go on to it. But if injuries are in the way, the matchup's there. Especially if Mariota was a starter, I'd probably back off of him even more. But with a rookie there and Ridder, I think there's opportunity. So
yeah. What about linebacker? Because Juwan Bentley, which is, again, we've talked about New England Patriots linebackers over the years plural, being just an avoid situation because Belichick's going to Belichick and Belichick's going to Belichick. But Juwan Bentley, if you look at the past 2 games, an 8% tackle rate. No, I obviously we have nothing to do with that. But the 2 games prior to that was a 17% tackle rate. So, even if you just average the 2, you're talking 12.5, 13%, which isn't great, but doable as an LB3. His last 2 weeks, though, he's not even rosterable. Are we just going to assume that's the norm going forward, or are you going to jump back into the Juwan Bentley pool this week against an Arizona Cardinals team?
Oh, I may jump back in a little bit, not as an LB1, or maybe he's a low-end LB2, I think. If you can get him as that or lower, I think you're good. He didn't have the best week last week. 5 tackles, 2 solos. That's kind of crappy, right? But 5 of the 6, 5 of the 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the previous 5 weeks, he had 8+ tackles, 8, 9, 10, 3, and then 10. So if you can get those kind of numbers out of him, if you believe he can give you those kind of numbers, I'm in with him. Again, not an LB1 or a high-end LB2. I think LB3 or lower, I'm okay with it. It depends on what kind of other options you're trying to put over him. Are you taking him or Devin Lloyd? I would take Devin Lloyd.
I would too, unless Booma's ankle's okay. I would rather have the full, the majority of the snaps Bentley's going to have over if they're going to rotate. I don't think they play both Muma and Lloyd at the same time the rest of this year.
Right.
Like you said, next year, though.
Right. Would you take Bentley or Malcolm Rodriguez?
Man.
See, that right there tells me that's kind of where his value is. If you're
great.
having to pause there, yeah, exactly.
If I could promise that we could get the Juwan Bentley from like week 9 and where he had 16 pass rush attempts, created 4 pressures, got to the quarterback, had a couple hits, picked up, 6, 7 tackles. If that's that's the confusing part, is like to begin the season. He's had pass rush attempts of 8, 16, 10. He's had 4 games with significant pass rush attempts, and the other games, 1. He's still, he's had 83 pass rush snaps on the season and 12 total pressures. So, you're talking about a 15% pass. I don't know. I did that math really fast. I'm not quite sure that's perfect, but you get the idea.
For me, I'm not banking on those pass rushing numbers. I'm just not. If I can take him for his pure tackle numbers, then I think I'm okay with that.
And that's what concerns me, is that if I know the floor for him sometimes can be that, 4 tackle game with nothing else, no splash added to it. But that's what we've said. We've put that as a preface, is that he's, an LB3, low end 2, LB3. I'm fine with that. That's okay there. It's just I don't get expectations that you're going to have an LB1, 2 performance each week going forward. And I think we're both in agreement there.
Right.
What about Jonathan Owens, Houston Texans safety, primary box safety? His last 2 weeks, though, combined 7 tackles. A little concerning. Obviously, we loved, early on the season, Jalen Petrie was kind of an IDP rookie sensation. And Jonathan Owens has had some weeks too. Hell, that wasn't week 1 where he had like 18 tackles or something like that. So, I mean,
I think it was week 1.
Yeah, he's had huge weeks, but
he's a mirage for me, though.
Okay.
I mean, these last 2 weeks, that's really concerning. Petrie's the guy you want there for sure.
Yeah. Well, actually, Hollywood, I need you to say you're not going to shake it off. That's the segment, is shake it off, not Money and Mirage. Don't be trying to pivot away from your Taylor Swift theme. So, yep, you have to play along. Sorry, I'll say it for you. I'm not going to shake it off. I will say this: Jorge really this week likes Jonathan Owens in this matchup. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in that box safety snaps with the amount of time up there. I could see it. I still work. I mean, it's not like he didn't have it the past 2 weeks either. I mean, we're not talking about Owens. Owens wasn't relegated to a role where he was in the free safety for the majority of the time. His percentage in the box the last 2 weeks. I mean, if you look at overall, his 23 box snaps, 24 in week 12, 29, 14 on the line last week alone, and nothing to show as a result. I'm shocked they don't rush him more. He has 5 total pass rush snaps. I mean, it just seems like if you're playing that close in the box, even occasionally, just blitzing once or twice would be something. But Lovie Smith doesn't blitz his safeties, I guess, that much, huh?
Yeah, like you said, you would think he would just kind of stumble into one.
I mean, at some point, right?
Exactly, but that's not been the case. So, yeah.
Oh, well. Let's go into some of our fades and some of our plays. Obviously, it's just me and you. Mike or Jorge, Mike really was going to have the defensive line. I picked out a couple, and I'll see if you agree with me. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down with these. Play this week. I know that you like the defensive tackle position, especially for some of the defensive tackle eligible leagues that people play in. Osa Odighizuwa from the Dallas Cowboys has an excellent matchup against the Houston Texans this week. I mean, let's be honest. I think the game's going to get out of hand. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence are going to draw all the attention. And my favorite play of the week or against is left guard Kenyon Green, Scott Quisenberry in the center. Kenyon Green had been getting even rotated out. That's how bad he's been. As finally Houston Texans coaching staff realized he's getting pulverized. Let's pull him out. Justin McCray steps in and starts getting some snaps. What happens? Justin McCray is questionable. He's going to be out. So you have, Osa's going to be lined up over that side. He's a defensive right tackle, primarily. I think it's going to be a ton of one-on-ones. They're going to try to split out, check, crackbacks, check blocks. They're going to try to move assignments over. Sorry, that was hard to say the word assignments, I guess. But I see just for a defensive tackle, I think as a defensive tackle must start in DT leagues. I think there's a chance that he actually produces as a defensive line 3 this week amongst all the other pass rushers, just simply because of the pressure he exerts up the middle. What do you think?
Yeah. Position specific leagues. Yeah. I like that. I like him as a play, especially in deep leagues, really, where you're doing 2 to 4 defensive tackles, those type of leagues. Oh yeah. He's definitely a play. I think in your general type leagues or basic leagues with smaller starters or whatever, I'm kind of passing on him. But if you've got an injury and or a couple injuries or whatever, and you're looking for a play, he could be a sneaky play, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to play a defensive tackle in any format when you can play edge rushers and defensive ends, because there is a non-zero chance that he has 7 pressures up the middle and gives an end result of 1 assisted tackle and nothing else, and just butchers your line.
Right.
But I love the opportunity. I love the matchup. Let's go to one of your plays at linebacker.
Okay. So the play this week, we kind of mentioned it earlier. Dylan Cole against Jacksonville with David Long being out. There's very little depth on Tennessee's roster behind him. We talked about Monty Rice and Joe Schobert. They're fighting for the scraps behind Dylan Cole. We talked about Tennessee's offensive line, how they are not Tennessee's offensive line, but the depth they have. He's played 78% of the defensive snaps the last 2 weeks, and both of those were starts. And I expect that to continue while he's keeping up his role, as I mentioned earlier, on special teams. Jacksonville, while they're getting better, they have their issues as well, right? So I think they're going to, with Trevor kind of beat up, they're going to want to run Etienne and those guys a little bit. So, yeah, Vrabel guy, you're definitely going to want to have him in your lineup.
Nice. I'll tell you who I really like. Dylan Cole. I think he's a sneaky pickup that people are overlooking, just simply because we've gotten to the point now. Let's be honest. In most leagues, you probably have 8 teams out of, say, 12, maybe 6 that are actually making moves anymore. You hope that you have all 12 teams doing it, but there's a majority of the leagues where it's only the contending teams, and it what it does is it increases the depth on the waiver wire. So some of these plays are a little bit more available. And Dylan Cole wasn't someone that was, in shallow leagues, clogging up a ton of roster spots. But someone I'm going to fade on defensive line before we get to defensive back is I'm fading Kayvon Thibodeau. I think that Giants defensive line, like we talked earlier about Ojulari. I mean, when Ojulari returned, Thibodeau moved back predominantly to that left side. And when he did, now he'll rotate back and forth. They'll do that. Wink Martindale moves people around, but Lane Johnson resides over on that right side. And that's terrible news. Ain't nobody worse than Lane Johnson when you want to get pass rush and pressures on, because he's allowed 7 pressures on the season, 0 sacks. I know the Giants are blitz heavy, and I expect Dexter Lawrence to be disruptive up the middle, but I don't think Ojulari or Thibodeau really do much in this game. Who's someone you fading at linebacker?
Just off of that, the one thing that might keep Thibodeau relevant is if Leonard Williams is out.
And I think he will be.
If he's out, so that might help Thibodeau, because they may play him some at defensive end. So if you can play him there, that might be his one little saving grace for this week. But yeah, I agree. Everything else you said, I agree with you.
Great point.
And I feel like my fade for this week, and we're staying with the Giants, right? And I feel like this is an easy one, but I actually had 2 or 3 people ask me about him this week, and I'm like, wow. But Tay Crowder, you're fading him. If you've not already faded him at this point, you need to go ahead and do it. Just pull the trigger, get it done. He's done. His star is crashing down, and his teammate, Micah McFadden, he's a shooting star, right? So they're kind of passing each other, going in different directions. Crowder's already lost his starting role. He's played a total of 51 defensive snaps in the last 5 games. I don't care anything else you hear or see. 5 games, 51. That's 10 snaps, defensive snaps a game. I'm done.
Yep.
You
0 last week.
Right. So, I mean, so that's a little worse. So, yeah, if you've got Crowder, which I didn't, I wasn't, even with the loss of Blake when they got rid of Blake Martinez, I was like, really? You're going to cut Martinez or trade him, whatever you did, and keep Crowder? That was just garbage to begin with. So I'm guessing they wish they still had Martinez, would be my guess, but they'd probably never say that.
Unless he retired on them too for his Pokemon obsession, which could be the case. But man made a bunch of money selling them. He's a good businessman. I would rather, if I can sell a Pokemon card and make $100,000, or have to go tackle Derrick Henry, I'm going to say Pikachu choose the cards over that for sure. A couple plays. Thanks. My defensive back. I'm going to play Keanu Neal. Both Antoine Winfield, Mike Edwards out. Looks like again last week Keanu Neal stepped up. should be in line for probably close to 100% of snaps. One thing I like about this too is that Logan Ryan returned, which really gives Tampa more, I'd say, opportunity to keep Keanu Neal at it around the line of scrimmage. The 49ers with Brock Purdy, I think will probably keep it simple. They won't completely spread it out. I think just the ball will be, I think Keanu Neal should be around the ball consistently. I see him leading the team in, at least not in tackles, but being heavily involved in run play tackles like he was last week. It seems like a good opportunity for a person who could deliver, DB1 upside realistically, that could still be available on certain waivers. And I'm fading, and tell me what you think of this fade, because we talked about this last night too. Talanoa Hufanga, we loved him for a long time in the show, right? Yeah. And unlike
I still do.
Yeah. Well, here's my concern, Hollywood. Hufanga from weeks 1 through 8 had played, I'm going to say 56%, something like that at the line of scrimmage. And the last since then has played predominantly in the box or at free safety. His snaps at free safety has just absolutely crushed his upside, because prior to that, he's been outside the DB4 conversation since then. Realistically, it's just he's just not playing what I would consider impact snaps, like at around the line of scrimmage, and he's just not making the plays as much as I like. Now, doesn't mean that I don't like him as a player. I still really like him as a player. I think he's very explosive and will be good for a while. I don't like this matchup because I think that if he's playing free safety, he's looking for plays to get past the second line of defense, which if that's Levante David and Devin Lloyd and even Keanu Neal, that's difficult. Nope, sorry, wrong team. Backwards. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Yowzers. Oh yeah.
You lost me there. I was like, oh shit.
You're like, what team is he on?
What happened?
Oh yeah, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy moly. Yeah. Maybe this is why I don't record podcast, but you know what I'm saying. The second level with Warner, Dre Greenlaw, etc. And you need turnovers by Tom Brady. And Brady just doesn't force a lot of turnovers. And that's my concern with Hufanga. You still like him. Are you not worried about him this week?
Well, I guess it's a case of that most of my leagues probably, and I may be a tad wrong on this, give or take, but I would say 90% of my leagues are position specific and they're leagues. So I'm starting 5-6 safeties, and probably I don't have, he's probably at the very least, he's probably my third or fourth best safety in some leagues. So I'm kind of forced to start him. If you're playing in smaller leagues or general position leagues, then I'm with you. This is not a good matchup for him. You're probably.
Let me put it this way: you're in a 12-team league where you start 2 safeties, so 24 total safeties or corners, defensive backs. You can start him if you want to. You have a choice to put him as one of your top 24. Would you have him in your top 24 this week?
No.
Okay. That says a lot to me. That's about where I have him, which I hate because
I think that's really close. That cutoff line, I think that's really close.
And I really like him as a player, and that's what makes it hard sometimes.
I think he's going to get better as his career goes on. I think he's going to be one of the better safeties in the league. But I agree with you. For this week, I think that's where he's at. So.
Yep. Because like consensus on Fantasy Pros, he's the DB 11, and I think that's way too high. That's just my opinion. I mean, at worst,
I would feel better if he was 20 or lower.
That's what I like. Like he's ranked the highest Fantasy Pro ranker has him at DB 8. The worst is at DB 28, and I'll tell you. I'm probably pretty close to where that 20 to 24 to 28 is going to rest. And I hope he does well. Just doesn't make, a lot of sense. But let's get into the final little area for the last 5 minutes. We can do our sack lunch. It's been a been a difficult season for me, I would say, as a whole. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit, if you will, with the sacks. And I'm going to take that same matchup I said earlier with Osa and the Dallas Cowboys against the Houston Texans. And I'm going to go with DeMarcus Lawrence. He doesn't have to go against Laramie Tunsil, so that right side should be wide open for him to just exploit all the attention. It just should be a bloodbath. I could see 4 or 5 different players with the sack, or at least 4 or 5 sacks on this Texans team, and just leaving their imprint. What say you? Who's your sack lunch this week?
Yeah, I hate to go here, but I feel like it's been a Titans podcast a little bit, but I'm going to take Trayvon Walker, the rookie for Saxonville. I mean, what have we said all show? Their offensive line for Tennessee is just not good. They're giving up 2.58 sacks per game. Tannehill doesn't help himself. We don't have a lot of good receivers. We said it with Josh Allen. This is a good get-right game for him, right? But I think the super rookie Trayvon Walker, I think he gets 1. He may get 2 here. I really do. I think like I would almost guarantee 1, and I would probably be. I'm going to say 60% that he gets 2. I'm going to go out there and say that because I think that's where Tennessee is right now.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think the double sack lunch has been one that I will say.
Well, I'm a big boy. I like double sandwiches. So
I like double sandwiches too. I'm right there with you, my friend. And I think that's the one thing we've actually done very well on the year so far. I
think we have. Everybody as a group we've done. Yeah.
Yeah. If this was a bet on multi-sack weeks, I think there has been 4 or 5 weeks where one of us has called one, and those odds would be tremendous.
Well, I know Mike's called 1, maybe 2 double sack weeks. I can't remember who it was, but
exactly.
And I would be curious to see what the odds on DraftKings or Action 24/7 is for Walker to get a sack. Because I gotta believe it's plus money, and I would smash that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lawrence is probably minus 115 or something like that, pretty straight up against a team like Houston. But I think people underestimate.
I would smash that too, though. Because
I think I would too.
That's almost a given. Yeah.
I think the Osa sack would be the one that I would really like to exploit because the defensive tackle
definitely plus money.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe we'll look into that and see.
That's probably plus 2.25 or more. I would imagine, maybe more than that.
I don't know. I live in, unfortunately, a state that doesn't allow sports gambling yet. But when it does,
you and Kerry should pack up and move to Tennessee, like the Beverly Hillbillies.
I mean, it would be. We don't
or
live.
Or Kerry can just pack up and move to Tennessee. She don't have to bring you.
She would. Don't take her. Don't tempt her. She would. She's
good people.
She is good people.
She's good people.
I even got myself a sleeveless shirt to wear around here, so I remind her of you so that maybe she'll look longingly at me.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. The adoration of this household. But we do. We adore you, and we adore IDP. And this has been week 14 of Shoot the Gap for Hollywood.
Man, this has been fun.
It was fun. I like doing this.
I like Smooth Jazz and the Boss Man, but damn, I think we just need to boot their asses from here on out. Just me and you, 2-man show.
I mean, I think we nailed it. 59 minutes and 15 seconds. We're right under an hour. I can't think of anything smoother than, Smooth Jazz. And I would play Shake It Off again. And I got it's Redbreast 12-year. It's Irish whiskey. Well, my face is getting a little red, but that's okay. So for Hollywood, and for Nate. Oh, and by the way, Wilson Contreras coming to the Cardinals. Hollywood. Later, folks.